Well, you're early. That's good. Somebody told you directors can never be late. That was on my first job I ever did. I showed up 5 minutes before call time. And my AD said, if the call time is 7 o'clock, you should be here at 6:30,
Yeah, my first boss was Paula Wagner. And she said, if you're 5 minutes early, then you're on time. If you come on time, then you're fired.
Multiple structures burning on the ocean side of PCH.
When you're in the burn zone, it's like being in a war zone.
All of PCH is on fire. It is like driving through hell itself.
Boom, boom. It wouldn't stop.
It felt like war. What am I feeling? I was like, that's fear.
I literally thought we're going to burn alive.
The fire had just grown and grown and grown. It was a monster.
And we hear a firefighter, and he says, the next neighborhood is Big Rock.
10 minutes from impacting Big Rock.
The dispatch says, stand.
He said, stand down.
Stand down.
It's crazy how little's actually left. I saw something that I was wondering if it survived. Yep, a little Christmas-themed cup.
This is a home that my parents built in 1962. I have a 12-year-old daughter. This is her greatest fear.
We've come back to our apocalypse of a house.
People don't have a mindset that it could really happen to them.
We are only as strong as our infrastructure, and our infrastructure is falling apart.
There is a massive systemic failure here.
I ran to the faucet, and I noticed that water pressure had dropped.
The LA City Council voted to slash millions from the fire department budget.
Yes, it was cut, and it did impact our ability to provide service.
People said firefighters had orders not to go into the community because it was too dangerous for them.
So we did what we had to do.
Can you show us some of your tools that you use that night?
Garden hoses. I was here with 2 garden hoses to protect my house.
It requires people, boots on the ground. They should have already been there.
The Mountains Recreation and Conservation Authority doesn't do brush clearance.
You got a ton of fuel everywhere.
The brush is taller than me. I'm looking at it going, oh my God, this is Palisades 2.0.
We're looking for answers.
We were forgotten, and that's why people are so angry.
A domino of failures led to our devastation. What are you going to do about it?
You cannot assume the government will come for you.
When the next fire comes through, because that's not an if, that's a when. I don't want to be all alone again.
Hi, I am Chuck Braverman. This is another episode of Westdoc Online, where we bring you the best conversations with the top documentary filmmakers from around the world, and today is no exception. Today we have director David Goldblum, who has a very unique story to tell, and I have a direct connection with this story, which you'll find out about in a minute. So let's say hi to David. How are you, David?
Great. Thank you for having me. I'm a big fan of your show.
Thank you. Oh, I like that. Where are you speaking from? What city or what?
Right now, I'm in New York. I go to San Francisco tomorrow, and then on the road with the film.
And so are you living in New York right now?
Yeah, so after the fires, I was living in a hotel for about 4 or 5 months and came to New York for a couple months just to get away.
So the title of your film is Big Rock Burning. And I would venture to say that most people that are watching this have no idea where Big Rock is. You want to tell them a little bit about Big Rock and the connection to what are probably known outside of LA as the LA or the Palisades and Eaton fire, right?
Yeah. Yeah, nobody really knew that it came into Malibu, but basically the fire came through the Palisades down to the PCH. And if you're driving down the PCH, there's a small mountain enclave called Big Rock as soon as you get into Malibu. And there are about 270 homes in Big Rock, and almost every single one of them burned in the Palisades fire.
People said that it was that the firefighters had orders not to go into the community because it was too dangerous for them. Yet I was here with 2 garden hoses, able to protect my house. I believe if there had been 10 fire trucks, 5 fire trucks, they would have saved a few houses early in the beginning, and those houses would not have set other houses on fire.
The big reveal here, I lived on Big Rock for 17 or 18 years, raised my kids on Big Rock, and have nothing but warm and emotional feelings about the time spent there and the community there and the community of Malibu. My kids made lifelong friends going to school there and growing up there, and we could not have been more fortunate than to have landed there, and the friends that we made and the people that we met. And I'm so sorry that you lost your house. And when did you start thinking about making a film?
So, I mean, I'm not even a film director. I kind of accidentally fell into this. Normally, I'm a producer, and I've done very challenging subjects, impact-forward projects, the Uvalde shooting or the sex industry, marijuana incarceration. So I've been in these difficult worlds, but I've never actually lived in one of them. And after the night of the fires, I evacuated to Woodland Hills, and the community of Big Rock, like you said, is very tight-knit. And we formed a WhatsApp group the night of the fires because no firefighters came into our community and nobody knew what was happening. There weren't evacuation orders, like nobody had any information. So we formed this group, and that's how we were all finding out that our homes burned and just kind of what was happening. And in the hours after that WhatsApp group formed, people just kept saying, we have to get this story out there. No firefighters came. I later found out there was a stand down order to not go into our community. And the more that people were saying, we have to get this story out there, I just felt this call that this is what I could do to help the community. So I sent a message to the WhatsApp group and I said, listen, I know this is raw. It's 3 days after the fires at this point. But if we want to tell our stories, I'm happy to shepherd the project. And that was the beginning. And about 40 people responded to me. And 3 days after the fire, I was sneaking past the National Guard back to Big Rock with members of the community.
The most shocking part isn't the fire as much as the fact that no firefighters showed up. And I have to assume that they were just overwhelmed with what was going on in the Palisades and down on PCH, but it's still shocking, isn't it, to live in this day and age and think you pay taxes and you support. And by the way, which most people don't know, Malibu is in LA County. It's not part of LA City. And when I was living there, it wasn't even an incorporated city. I think that it became an incorporated city while we were there, and there was a big argument about whether it should be an incorporated city or not. There were some advantages, I guess, of being and not being.
Yeah. I mean, listen, the point of the film was not to do a blame game, but to really show the systemic breakdown that led to how is there no water in the fire hydrants, or how are there no firefighters in Malibu? And this was happening all over the LA at the time. I mean, Altadena, the Palisades, Malibu, but this also happened in Maui. It's happening in Chile. So I don't think on a global scale we've caught up to how dire this issue is with the wildfires. And I just think we haven't allocated enough resources to really prioritize this.
And you told me before we started that you were about to go speak at the United Nations is this about climate control or warming or all of the above or what?
No, so I'm going to play the trailer for the film and just speak about my personal experience and what I think needs to be done on a global policy level to really prioritize these disasters. And it's, climate change is inevitable, but we can put preventative measures in place to ensure that we don't have something as destructive happen again.
When I moved into Big Rock, I think it was the late 70s, and there was a big boulder, ironically, a big rock came down and blocked Pacific Coast. PCH, by the way, stands for Pacific Coast Highway, the iconic, beautiful highway that runs up and down the west coast of California on the ocean. And we ended up buying the house during the blockade, because we knew that rock they were going to take that away and everything was going to be fine. And you probably know that years later, in the early 90s, there was a major landslide in Big Rock. And I would say 2 or 3 dozen homes near the bottom of Big Rock were condemned by the county. And there was a huge lawsuit by 2 different groups. So Big Rock is not without its tragedies and its news-making events. What is your background, film background, and how did you get into film, and how did you become a producer?
So my college roommate was Paula Wagner's son. And Paula at the time had just left United Artists and was looking for a young and hungry assistant. And I was 18 or 19 years old. And my friend, who actually composed the score for Big Rock Burning in my last film, he said, well, why don't you move to LA and go work for my mom? And I moved out to LA when I was 19 years old. I was a junior in college or sophomore, and started interning for Paula. And that became the beginning. And she said one day, she called me into her office and she said, what's your dream? Like, what are you trying to do? And everybody had always said, like, Paula was the hardest boss to work for in Hollywood. And she's in the mailroom, the book, and she's just this notoriously hard boss. But for me, she was always so helpful, and she became a mentor to me. And I said, well, my dream is to go to the UCLA Film School for screenwriting. And, they said it's harder to get into Harvard Medical School than the UCLA screenwriting program. And she said, I'm on the board there. And she made calls like day after day and got me into the UCLA Film School. I think I was the youngest person ever to get in. And I got my MFA in screenwriting at UCLA. And I was always writing very difficult projects about abuse or addiction, trauma, just challenging. And it was hard to get anything sold or made when I got out of UCLA. But 10 years ago, I started my own production company and started finding out how to find financing for my own projects, and basically allowed myself to greenlight myself, which has opened a lot of doors for me.
Was Richard Walters running the screenwriting program when you were there?
He was the co-screenwriting chair. Yeah.
He was a classmate of mine at another university across town called USC.
Yeah.
And ironically ended up at UCLA. And what kind of films was Paula producing at the time when you were working for her?
She was in development from her United Artists deal on lots of bigger projects. She was developing Miss Saigon and other big things that a lot of them didn't end up going. But I learned, kind of from a legend, how to put films together.
Well, you must have obviously learned well, because you've produced, several notable films, and it says here on the notes that I have that you have a 3-picture deal with Village Roadshow now.
I did, yeah. I had breakfast one day with Steve Moscow, who's the CEO of Village Roadshow, and I'm just scrappy. I'm a New Yorker. I didn't come from lots of resources. I never had a handout, but I just feel like I can work harder than anybody. And he said, I need somebody like you. And he gave me an office and gave me a 3-movie deal. Village Roadshow had its own set of problems at the end of last year, so they're actually no longer, but it brought me back into the studio system.
So what do you think is your immediate future in the film world? Right. Do you have some projects that are cooking, or do you want to talk about them or not talk about them, or what?
Yeah, I'm in post on a documentary about an NBA legend, basketball story, very inspirational. And we just are about to greenlight a film about one of the most iconic brands that I can't really talk about, but I've really fallen in love with the doc space.
Do you have a feeling for what the doc world is going through right now, financially and, well, let me just put it that way. Do you know what's going on in the doc world?
Yeah, I mean, because I watch your podcast all the time. But yeah, I mean, it's been, I just read an article that I think last year there were 150 some odd docs in the theater, and this year there's like 45. So it's very challenging. It's harder than ever. And I think everybody's looking for some kind of outside the box way to get their movies made and get their movies out there.
Can you talk a little bit about what the budget was for Big Rock Burning and where the money came from and what the future, the distribution might be?
Yeah, at first it was my credit card, because normally, you know, there's a period of let's put together a pitch deck and let's go out to financiers and really have a period of development or pre-production. But I was just like, I need to be on the ground tomorrow. And originally I had a big, like I reached out to a DP who I love, and she wanted a camera truck and lighting. And then when I got on the ground in Malibu and I saw there's a 3-hour wait to get into the PCH with the National Guard blocking the road every day, and I had to sneak my cameraman in the trunk, I really had to get more limited in size. And that became an asset for us, actually, because it really allowed for an intimate film. But Julie Parker Bonello, who's one of my producers, she was one of my first calls when I said, I think I want to do this. And she came on with a very generous grant. And then James Costa, our other great producer, came on. And then we just started kind of evolving from there. I think it was only about $50,000 to make the entire film. And then we've raised some money for our impact efforts.
And what are you doing about distribution? How are people going to be able to see it, or can they see it now, and where?
We're figuring that out, because I had a call with an entrepreneur when I was in production, and he said, listen, you have to get out of Hollywood time. You have to get into internet time. And that really struck me, to just make these movies and get them out as quickly as possible before the next natural disaster happens, or people just get so desensitized to these issues. And I've seen that happen with other films where the movie comes out years after the tragedy and people are just like, you know, they're on to the next one. So my hope is to get this out this year, and we're looking at different ways to do that.
How did you end up on Big Rock Drive?
Just by accident. I mean, how does anybody? I think I've just was touring different communities, and I think what really struck me about coming from New York, when you think of Malibu, you think of the homes on the PCH, the big $20 million homes. And I think there's two different Malibus. There's second home Malibu, and then there's generational home, first home Malibu. And Big Rock is just the most affordable community, and it's also real people, you know, professors and teachers and life coaches. These aren't mega.
Brian Grazer lived there when we were there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's in contrast to what you're saying.
Yeah.
But
Brian Grazer,
he was just a regular guy, you know, looking a scrappy young producer like you at the time.
Exactly. Yeah. More scrappy people there.
And Mark Hamill, what's his connection been, beside the fact that obviously he lives there and has lived there? Did his house not burn, or did it burn?
Did not burn, no.
Why didn't it? Did he have some sort of a water system, or was he just lucky?
I believe he had somebody who was just happened to be in his back house that was able to help. I mean, the homes that didn't burn are miracles. It's people who fought them off with garden hoses or their pool water. I mean, it's really just like, how did that survive? And everybody has a story like that.
In 92, I think it was, there was another fire at Big Rock, and I happened to be in New York, and I immediately jumped on a plane and came home, and was landing at LAX at night, sitting on the right side of the plane. I could see the fire very clearly, and I tried to get up there, and they had PCH blocked off. I survived that. And this time I thought that our house that my kids grew up in, I don't know why, I thought it had survived. And then just literally a couple of weeks ago, there's a LA County map of addresses and so on, and a aerial view, and there was the house gone. There was not the house.
Yeah.
And it was my kids, my grown adult children now, very upset, because that was their home growing up.
Yeah. And also what you said with seeing the fire, I mean, I had never been in a fire. Like, I looked out our window and there was a 20-foot fire cloud coming straight towards me, and I jumped in my car and sped off the mountain, just getting out. And as I'm driving outside the PCH, there's embers as like I was in a Jurassic Park movie. Like, I'm not equipped to handle that, and I don't think anybody was.
Were you able to take anything with you,
No, I really went into fight or flight, and as soon as I saw the fire, I just was a bat out of hell.
Did you own the house, or were you renting the house?
Yeah, we owned it.
So, and just out of curiosity, what's going on now with insurance and permits and rebuild or no rebuild and all that thinking?
What I heard last week, I mean, there's been a lot of press about this recently in Malibu specifically. It's very hard to rebuild, and permit is just excruciating. I think there's been one permit. No, I think now there's been 2 or 3 permits in the last 9 months. And it just forces people to not want to go through that again. They haven't made it easy to get a permit. It's an excruciating.
Is that the LA County?
In Malibu.
And
there's a lot of red tape.
So what is that going to mean for the future of that community, which is, as you said, 270 homes or something like that up Big Rock Drive?
It's sad. There was an article that came out a month ago or so about a foreign investor who put down, I think, $75 million to buy.
But that wasn't in Big Rock. That was probably on. Those were the on the water.
Yeah, but
Malibu
I think he bought
homes. Yeah.
I think he bought 10 lots, and it's people who are willing to play the long game. And I think Malibu is going to change, just like all of LA. I think Altadena is having the same problem.
As you know, people don't know outside, PCH, Pacific Coast Highway, was closed for, 6 or 7 months as they were cleaning it up, and only at some point they allowed residents back in, but it was the PCH is a busy street and was closed, and all those homes are right there. And so where I live, out on the other side of PCH, you could come over Canaan, and I would meet my friends, for lunch in Malibu who came up from Santa Monica or whatever. And so I drove down PCH just a couple of weeks ago to go into Santa Monica. And even though I had seen all the video of all the homes on PCH missing, it is still shocking to be there and see it and wonder, how did the fire get, you'd think all the homes that were on the water, they'd have to cross this big highway, and there wasn't a lot of brush, or there wasn't a mountain there. It was just homes on the sand. How did they burn down? And a lot of them were gone. And at one point, I was on the phone speaking to somebody, and they said, "Have you passed Big Rock yet?" Knowing that I lived there. And I said, "I can't tell. I don't know, because all the homes that I recognized were gone, that were on the coast."
No, but I mean, you said, how did this kind of happen? That was my question going into filming. Like, what happened the night of the fires? I mean, what really went wrong? What happened? And I kind of have learned a lot through this experience of, the Palisades fire started in Palisades. It kind of became this urban fire. And because there weren't any resources in the Palisades with the water and the reservoir and no water in the fire hydrants, it got through Palisades into Malibu. And by the time it got to Malibu, it was just uncontrollable. And going down the beginning of Malibu, I mean, there was so much brush. As you go down Malibu, it just picked up steam and got bigger and bigger. And by the time it got into Malibu proper, there was no stopping it.
Do you think you'll ever move back to Malibu?
I don't know. Los Angeles, California, I think everything's on the table right now.
David, thank you so much for being a guest on Westdoc. I wish you the best, and I look forward to seeing your future films, and I hope that Big Rock Burning gets to be seen by everybody. So think about how lucky they may be wherever they are at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck.